It was a rainy Thursday morning in June 2025 when former President Barack Obama sat alone in his quiet Chicago office, surrounded by half-finished drafts of his next memoir and a stack of policy papers on climate justice. The world had grown more chaotic in recent years, divided, distracted, and dangerously indifferent. And Barack, though no longer president, still felt a deep ache in his heart for the future of humanity. He had just finished a long call with a former colleague about international peace initiatives when his assistant, Layla, entered the room holding a worn, dark box with strange carvings that shimmered in the low light. "There's no return address," she said hesitantly. "Security scanned it 3 times. No explosives, no toxins. But the carvings, they move." Obama turned toward her, his brow furrowed. "Move?" Layla nodded. "They shift when you look directly at them. And sir, it's warm." Barack stood slowly and walked over to the package. It was a wooden box, maybe the size of a shoebox, carved from wood darker than mahogany, with glowing symbols that looked both ancient and futuristic at the same time. Stars, spirals, and eyes that blinked without blinking. He reached for it and felt something stir inside him. As his hand touched the box, the symbols danced. Just then the door burst open. "Elon Musk is here," said a Secret Service agent breathlessly. "And he's brought his son." Before Barack could process what was happening, Elon rushed in, soaked from the rain, with his 12-year-old son Kai close behind. Elon looked pale, almost frightened, an expression Obama had rarely seen on the man who had built cities on Mars and neural links for the mind. "That box," Elon said in a whisper. "Where did you get it?" Barack looked at him calmly. "It arrived this morning." "Why?" Elon stepped forward, trembling. "That box belonged to my grandfather, Henrik Musk. He was a brilliant inventor, far ahead of his time. He left strict instructions. This box must only be opened by the person destined to unify the world in its hour of greatest disconnection." Obama's eyes narrowed. "What's inside?" "I don't know," Elon admitted. "None of us do." But he called it the heart engine. He believed it could connect every human soul on Earth, through love. Not metaphorical love, real, felt, measurable connection. Kai stepped closer. "I saw you in my dream, Mr. Obama," he said, his voice steady despite his age. "You were crying, but you were happy. Behind you, people all over the world were smiling. And the sky was glowing." Barack stared at the boy, then back at the glowing box. For a moment, the office fell silent except for the sound of rain tapping the windows. The symbols on the wood began to shift faster, pulsing in rhythm with Barack's own heartbeat. "Whatever's inside," Elon said slowly, "it waited 70 years to be found. And it chose you." The moment Kai finished speaking, Barack turned to face the box again. The symbols on its surface had started forming patterns, words in a language he didn't know, yet somehow could almost understand. They pulsed like a living heart. "Elon," Barack said, his voice calm but tinged with awe, "I need to know everything your grandfather told you. Everything he wrote. Every warning." Elon nodded, then reached into the inner pocket of his jacket. Carefully, he pulled out a fragile, yellowed envelope. It looked like it had been written during wartime, a relic of the 1950s. Across the front, in trembling handwriting, were the words, "To the one who feels everything." "This letter," Elon said softly, "was passed down from Henrik to my father and then to me. I was told to give it to the person the box chose. Not the most powerful, not the smartest, but the one who carried the weight of humanity on his shoulders and still stood tall." Barack took the letter with a heaviness in his chest. As he opened it, the smell of old paper and oil filled the air. Inside were 2 pages of writing in blue ink, shaky but urgent. He began to read aloud. "To you who holds this box in trembling hands, if you are reading this, then my invention has waited patiently, through generations of war, greed, loneliness, and hope. Inside this box is a living seed. I call it the heart engine. It is not a weapon. It is not a tool. It is something far more dangerous. It is empathy in its purest form. Once opened, it will bind your soul to every suffering heart on Earth. You will feel their pain, their longing, their heartbreak, but also their love, their joy, their silent prayers. If you are not ready to give up your own solitude, do not open it, because once you do, you will never again be alone, not even for a moment. You will hear their cries, and you will be the answer." Barack stopped reading, unable to continue for a moment. The room was so quiet, even the rain outside had faded. "He knew," Obama whispered. "He knew what this would demand." "There's more," Kai said quietly. Barack read on. "I tried to open it myself. I failed. Not because I didn't care, but because I cared too much, and still wasn't brave enough to carry all that pain. I was selfish. I was afraid. But maybe, just maybe, someone like you would come. Someone with the heart of a parent and the soul of a servant. Someone who already hears the cries of the world in his sleep. If that's you, then let the box open. And let love do what fear never could. Barack folded the letter with trembling hands and placed it gently on his desk beside the box. When he looked up, there were tears in his eyes. I spent 8 years trying to fix a world that seemed determined to fall apart, he said slowly. I spoke to rooms full of power but felt more alone than I ever had in my life. And even now, I still carry the faces of children I couldn't help. Refugees. Victims. Mothers holding on to hope with nothing but broken hands. The box pulsed again, this time brighter. A soft golden light escaped from the seams. Kai stepped forward. It's waiting, Mr. Obama? I know, Barack said, his voice a whisper. He turned to Elon. Why didn't your grandfather just destroy it? If it was so dangerous, why not end it? Elon's face grew pale. Because he saw a future where it saved us all. Where a leader chose love over fear. He called it the second Genesis. Not the end of the world, but the beginning of something new. Barack slowly approached the box. As his hand hovered just above it, he turned to Maria, his longtime aide who had stood silently in the corner, her eyes wide with awe. Maria, he said, what would you do? Maria hesitated, then said, Sir, you've already carried more pain than most would dare. But you did it with grace. I believe if anyone can carry this burden and transform it, it's you. Barack nodded, then looked at Kai. And in your dream, did I open it? Kai nodded. And the world changed. Barack closed his eyes. For a moment he thought of his daughters. Michelle. Of the quiet nights when he'd lay awake wondering if he had done enough. If he had truly served the people who had trusted him with their dreams. Then he thought of the box. The cries it contained. The light it offered. He placed both hands on its sides. The box pulsed once more, warmer now, steadier. The symbols aligned into a single glowing word neither Elon nor Maria could read. But Barack understood. It said, welcome. The moment Barack placed his palms flat on the surface of the box, the golden glow intensified. Not blinding, but enveloping. Not heat, but a warmth that penetrated deeper than skin. It was like sunlight through a child's laughter, or the memory of a mother's hand on your shoulder when you thought no one else saw your pain. Everyone in the room felt it. Elon staggered back slightly, blinking through tears. It's responding to you. The carvings on the wooden surface twisted and danced, forming into a new shape, a perfect circle. A heartbeat. It pulsed once and Barack's entire body shook. Then, nothing. Silence. No light. No sound. Just the stillness of a world on the edge of transformation. Barack opened his eyes. It's waiting again. Kai stepped forward slowly. It needs one more thing. Not just your hands, Mr. Obama. Your heart. Barack looked down at the box, his reflection flickering in the polished wood. He thought of all the people he'd met over the years. The mother from Flint who still gave her son bottled water to brush his teeth. The child in Aleppo who had drawn a picture of a house made of stars and peace. The old civil rights leader in Selma who gripped his hand and said, "Don't you dare forget what we bled for." He thought of those voices. And he thought of the silence that came after. "I've been feeling them for years," he said softly. "The ones this world forgot. And I kept telling myself that speaking about their pain was enough. That leading with empathy was enough." He touched the box again. But it was never enough. The box pulsed. Then for the first time it spoke, not aloud but within Barack's mind. 1,000 whispers. Gentle. Reverent. "We've waited for you." Barack gasped and fell to one knee. Maria ran forward, but Elon stopped her gently. "It's not hurting him. It's showing him." Inside Barack's mind, the whispers grew into memories, not his but theirs. He saw a child sitting alone in a refugee camp, drawing stars in the dirt with a stick. He felt the ache of an old man whose wife had passed away after 60 years, her side of the bed cold and untouched. He heard the soft, stifled sobs of a teenager who hadn't told anyone she no longer wanted to wake up in the morning. He felt their pain as if it were his own. Because now, it was. Barack's chest heaved with the weight of it. Not just sadness, but hope. Raw, unfiltered human hope. It hit like a flood and filled every corner of his soul. "I can feel all of them," he whispered, eyes glistening. He turned to Elon. "How did your grandfather even begin to create this?" Elon shook his head. He said the idea came to him in a dream, after watching a man walk past a homeless veteran without looking. That night, He had a vision of a world where no one was unseen. He didn't invent the technology, Maria said, realization dawning. He captured something that already existed. Elon nodded. He didn't build connection. He revealed it. Kai's voice rang clear. The box doesn't create anything new. It just removes what's in the way. Barack stood slowly. The light from the box began to rise upward, shimmering like mist curling around him. It wasn't electricity. It was presence. Energy born from feeling seen, heard, loved. Then what's next? He asked. The box answered again, not in words this time but sensation. It must be opened. Fully. Barack frowned. I thought I already did. Elon stepped forward. No. You touched it. You felt it. But the lock is still sealed. Barack looked down. Indeed, there it was, a small heart-shaped seal carved into the front of the box, glowing softly. Maria's voice trembled. What happens when you break the seal? Kai answered. Everything changes. Barack reached toward it but paused. For the first time since the box arrived, his hand trembled. What if I make things worse? He said quietly. And in that moment the box pulsed with something new. A memory. His own. He was back in the White House. The Situation Room. Sandy Hook. Charleston. Syria. Decisions no man should have to make. Nights where he stared at the ceiling wondering if hope was still a real word. He remembered Michelle holding his face and saying, "You're trying to fix the cracks in the world with your bare hands." And him answering, "Because no one else is." He looked at the box again. This time, "I'm not alone." Barack turned to the people around him. Maria. His eyes shimmered. "I need you with me." They all placed a hand on the box. The seal pulsed, then cracked just slightly. The wind outside stopped. The air itself seemed to listen. Barack Obama, with the hands of the future, the legacy of the past, and the hope of the present, placed his thumb on the seal. It clicked. And the box began to open. The moment the heart-shaped seal clicked open, the entire room shifted. Not visibly. Not physically. But spiritually. Time itself seemed to pause, like the universe had drawn in a breath, waiting to see what would happen next. A thin line of golden light appeared down the center of the wooden box, as if a sunrise were breaking through old wood. It wasn't light that came from electricity. It was older, deeper, like truth breaking through darkness. Kai's small hand tightened around Barack's wrist. "It's not just opening," he said. "It's awakening." Elon held his breath. Barack placed both hands on the edges of the box. His voice was steady, but inside his chest, his heart pounded with the weight of every human voice he had ever carried. The room was completely still as he lifted the lid. Inside, cushioned by velvet worn with age, was something no one expected. A mirror. Small. Circular. Its frame made of the same dark wood as the box. And in its center, a single drop of pure crystal suspended in air, floating just an inch above the mirror's surface, spinning slowly. It gave off a glow that made no sense in the physical world. It pulsed with the same rhythm as a beating heart. "What is it?" Maria whispered. Barack reached toward the floating crystal, but the moment his fingers neared it, the room darkened, not in menace but intimacy. A voice filled the air. Not Henrik. Not a machine. Not even a ghost. It was everyone. It was the voice of humanity itself, gentle, ancient, trembling with longing. "Before you take this gift, you must know its cost." The crystal flared, and suddenly Barack was somewhere else. He stood in a hospital room where a boy with cancer lay sleeping, tubes in his arms. Barack felt the child's pain, not imagined but real. The confusion. The fear. The desire to be strong even when his body failed him. Then he was in a war zone, a woman clutching her lifeless son in her arms in the rubble of what was once her home. Her scream tore through Barack's soul like shattered glass. Then he was alone. A man in a silent apartment, staring at a phone that never rang. He whispered, "I just wanted someone to remember me." Each life played out in Barack's heart like an orchestra of sorrow. But none of them crushed him. Because with each tragedy, came a flicker. A nurse's hand holding the boys. A stranger wrapping a blanket around the grieving mother. A kind neighbor knocking on the lonely man's door. And suddenly Barack understood. "This gift," he whispered, "isn't about removing pain." "No," said the voice of the box. "It is about never letting anyone carry it alone again." Barack's knees hit the floor. His shoulders trembled. Elon knelt beside him, his voice hoarse. "You okay?" Barack nodded through tears. "This power, it's beautiful. But it hurts." Maria gently touched his back. "That's what Henrik meant." It's not for controlling others. It's for becoming a home for their heartbreak, and still offering hope. The floating crystal hovered closer to Barack's chest. And then the voice said, "If you accept this, you will no longer walk as one. Every tear shed across the earth will echo inside your bones. You will be a chorus of weeping and laughter. A vessel of unity. You will not be alone. But you will never be alone again." Barack looked at Kai. "In your dream, was I happy?" Kai nodded. "You were crying. But smiling." Barack looked at the crystal one last time. "I accept." The moment those words left his mouth, the crystal dropped into his chest, without touching skin, without cutting flesh. It simply became part of him. Light burst through the office, not harsh but infinite. The carvings on the wooden box disintegrated into stardust and scattered to the corners of the earth. Barack collapsed, Maria catching him before he hit the ground. And then, something impossible happened. From every device in the world, from smartphones to static radios, from hospital monitors to coffee machines, a single heartbeat echoed. Bottom. Every human on Earth felt it. Not heard. Felt. And then, they began to feel each other. The heartbeat echoed through the world once, and then again. Bottom. It wasn't just a sound. It was recognition. A young man walking alone in Tokyo stopped mid-step as a strange warmth flooded his chest. A woman holding her third job shift in Johannesburg suddenly dropped into a chair, clutching her heart, not from pain but from overwhelming presence. From New York to Nairobi, from small islands to crowded megacities, people felt, not just seen but carried. In the Oval Office in Chicago, Barack Obama gasped as he sat up. His eyes were wide with wonder. Something inside him, something crystalline, ancient, and impossibly light, was glowing with the force of a billion heartstrings being tugged all at once. "I can feel them," he whispered. Maria helped steady him. "Who?" Barack looked around the room, then upward, as if looking past the ceiling, past the sky. "Everyone." Kai stepped forward, his eyes glimmering. "It's working, isn't it?" Barack nodded. "The network, it's real now. The invisible string that Henrik dreamed of, it's not theory anymore. It's alive. And it's growing." Suddenly, Barack wasn't speaking alone anymore. Voices filled the air, not aloud but through the connection now alive in all of them. "I'm scared. I miss my son. I'm tired of being strong for everyone. I don't want to die alone." Barack clutched his chest, overwhelmed. Then came others. "You're not alone. I'm with you. Let me help. I hear you." It was as if the walls between hearts were falling, one by one. Barack turned to Elon, whose eyes were wide with awe. "This isn't just emotional. It's structural. Neural. Spiritual." Elon stepped forward. "I'm getting energy readings off the charts. The network is moving through communication signals, brainwaves, even dream patterns. It's quantum empathy." Kai said softly, "It's love, transmitted at the speed of light." Maria looked at Barack. "What now? What happens next?" Barack stood, his voice calm but carrying the weight of centuries. "Now, the world chooses. Around the globe." In a small apartment in Ukraine, a widow who hadn't spoken to anyone in months picked up her phone and called her estranged sister. "I just felt like you were thinking about me." In Sao Paulo, a teenager about to throw herself from a bridge suddenly sat down. She didn't know why, but she felt arms around her, warm, invisible, and real. In Los Angeles, a homeless man was approached by 6 strangers within an hour. They offered food, a hug, and one of them simply said, "I don't know you, but I feel like you matter to me." The network had no app, no screen, no update required. It was ancient as love and new as breath. And the world began to change. Back in Chicago, Barack stood at the window watching the sun set over the city. But in his heart, he could feel sunrise in places he'd never stepped. "I thought I understood what leadership meant," he murmured. "But this isn't about leading with speeches or signatures." Maria said, "It's about carrying the world's heart without letting it break yours." Barack nodded. "Exactly. This is what Henrik wanted. Not a savior. A catalyst. Someone to strike the match." Behind him, the wooden box, which had released its power, crumbled gently into ash. The ashes blew toward the ceiling, then vanished into the air like seeds carried by the wind. Kai approached him, slipping his hand into Barack's. "I dreamed of this night," the boy whispered. "But I didn't know how beautiful it would feel." Barack looked down at him. "You were the first one to believe." Kai smiled. "And now everyone else is starting to believe too." Outside, lights flickered on across the world, but so did something else. Hearts. billions of them. In rhythm. In unity. It was nearly midnight when the message came through. Not on phones. Not through screens. But through the network, the living connection now binding hearts across oceans, languages, and beliefs. A wave of fear. Sure. Cold. Distinct. Barack's eyes snapped open. He was in the middle of a quiet meditation, listening to the soft symphony of humanity's feelings, a constant mix of joy, sorrow, and longing that had now become part of his every breath. But this was different. Elon, Barack said sharply. Something's wrong. Elon, already scanning quantum activity at a nearby console, looked up grimly. It's a disruption. Artificial. Intentional. Like a virus being injected into the heart of the network. Maria appeared in the doorway. Sir, we're getting reports. Whole neighborhoods suddenly going dark emotionally. Panic. Division. Doubt. They're trying to sever the connection, Barack said, standing. The ones who've feared this all along. The ones who've profited from our pain. Kai entered, barefoot and half asleep, his voice steady. They're afraid of love they can't control. Barack knelt before him. And what do we do when love is under attack? Kai didn't hesitate. We love harder. The final trial. Elon turned from the screens. We traced the signal. It's coming from a hidden relay tower in the Arctic Circle, tech we've never seen before. They're amplifying despair, sending it through every fracture they can find. Barack felt it, like cold fingers digging through the warmth of connection, whispering lies into vulnerable minds. You don't matter. They'll leave you too. This feeling will fade. You're still alone. The network dimmed. Barack could feel hearts folding in on themselves like flowers retreating from winter. I can stop it, he said quietly. No, Maria gasped. You can't go into that alone. Barack turned to them, calm but resolute. It was never just about opening the box. It was about being willing to bear the burden of connection, even when it hurts. If I let this virus fester, it won't just undo the network. It will make people afraid of love itself. Elon placed a trembling hand on his shoulder. You'll be absorbing all of it. The world's pain concentrated. You might not come back. Barack smiled gently. But if I don't, they might never come back to each other. Kai's eyes filled with tears. In my dream, I saw you walk into the storm. But I never saw you come out. Barack leaned down. Then maybe it's time to rewrite your dream. Into the heart storm. Barack sat cross-legged, placing both hands over his chest. He closed his eyes. He opened his soul. The world shuddered. The storm of fear struck him like lightning. Rage. Grief. Loneliness so sharp it felt like it could shatter bones. The worst of humanity poured into him. Betrayal, abandonment, cruelty. His body trembled. His skin grew cold. But deep inside him, the crystal still pulsed. And slowly, as the storm reached its peak, Barack whispered not with his mouth, but with his being. I see you. I know you. You are still worthy of love. And just like that, the darkness broke. The storm collapsed into itself. Across the world, people who had nearly turned inward in fear stopped. They looked up. They felt warmth. Not from their own strength, but because someone else had carried the weight for them. The new world. Barack awoke 3 days later. His eyes opened slowly. The first face he saw was Michelle's. You came back, she whispered, holding his hand tightly. So did they, Barack said, smiling faintly. Kai appeared in the doorway, beaming. It's happening. And it was. Across the globe, strangers were embracing. Old enemies were laying down their weapons. Children were born into a world where their first breath would be met with silent, invisible celebration by billions of unseen hearts. The network had held. Not because it was flawless, but because someone had loved enough to bleed for it. The legacy. 1 year later, the wooden box, or what remained of it, was sealed inside a transparent sphere and placed atop a monument in Geneva. No guards. No fences. Just an inscription in every language. Here began the world where no heart is left behind. Barack never returned to political office. He didn't need to. He had become part of something much bigger. Sometimes he would sit on his porch in Chicago, feeling the hum of the network like a quiet song in his chest, the laughter of a grandmother in Istanbul, the joy of a wedding in Kenya, the quiet healing of a boy in Brazil who finally believed his life mattered. And in his final days, as he closed his eyes surrounded by family, he whispered, we did it. Not with power. Not with fear. But with love. And in that moment, somewhere deep in the heart of the earth, the last echo of Henrik Musk's invention pulsed once more. A heartbeat. A connection. A promise kept.